Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton. Now you may be wondering, what the heck is the Business Mindset Podcast? I was subscribed to the Ready to Bloom podcast. Yes, you were. And in the same way that about a year ago I rebranded from Socially Holistic to Ready to Bloom, I am rebranding everything again. So you may have noticed that I've completely upgraded my website, changed the domain to my name, hollywharton.com, and I have rebranded the podcast as well. So it's now being called the Business Mindset Podcast. It's the same podcast, same interviews, same solo shows, same great guests, same host, me, just a different name. So I'm going to make this short and sweet so that we can get on to the episode, but I wanted to let you know what the heck is going on here. So this is now the Business Mindset Podcast. Same thing as always, different name. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to subscribe to this podcast. And I'm going to turn it over to today's episode, which I'm really, really excited about. So thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 140. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Jillian Haslam. Jillian is an author, philanthropist, trainer, and speaker. She previously worked in the banking sector for over 20 years before choosing to pursue her passion. She now runs her own business to help fund her charitable initiatives in India for the aged, the children, the youth, the disabled, and women in need. She won the first runner-up award for the Asian Woman of the Year in 2012. Her story, based on her book, Indian.English, has been featured on the BBC, Channel 5, The Times, The Independent, and many other major media, and it is now being turned into a Hollywood film. Welcome, Jillian.
Oh, thank you so much, Holly. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you today, and I've just finished reading your book this week, so you're so present in my mind.
Oh my! I hope it didn't upset you too much.
Well, it was an eye-opener. I've got to say, I think everyone should read your book because it just opens our eyes to a world that I think a lot of us don't understand what it's like, and I think you have a very, very special story to tell. So why don't I turn it over to you and ask you to tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today, because you have that very, very unique background that I think a lot of us don't fully understand.
Sure, thank you. Well, my father was an officer in the British Army, and he was posted to India. He worked there with the British Army for a number of years. And the British were given 1 year in which to leave the country and return after India got her independence. My father was just one of hundreds of families who decided to stay back because life over there was great. The weather was great to start with. They had servants, they had everything going for them. But after the year had lapsed, a lot of families lost their jobs. It's what happens during the time of, one country getting independence. And so my father was one of them. He lost his job. My mother couldn't find work. And that decision of his actually changed the course of our lives forever. So we were reduced to, as far back as I can remember, we lost 4 siblings, 2 sisters and twins, Kimberly and Alan, one after the other to poverty, abject poverty and malnutrition and other diseases that go with it. And as far as I can remember, myself and my little sister, Vanessa, we lived behind people's houses, under their stairs. Sometimes they took us in, sometimes they threw us out. And we went from pillar to post. And then we found a home under somebody's stairs, which is the picture depicted in the cover of my book. And then after that, we went to live in a proper slum where more than 3,000 people shared 3 toilets, to give you an example of how it was. And there was hardly any electricity. There was no sanitary conditions, hardly any water. We had to fill water from a tube well. It was one little room, 8 by 10 feet. And we all just huddled up inside there. And that's really where I stayed, right up to the time I finished school.
And how did you get out of those slums to the business world? How did you make that transition?
Holly, I always believed that, you are not a victim of your circumstances until and unless you accept that you are. And when I was a little girl, and the fifth sibling who was brought home, Susan, from the hospital, and the doctors had given her 3 days to live, we were in this little slum at the time, and it felt as though the world had given up on us, the country had given up on us, and of course the doctors had given up on us. But I refused to give up on her. I ran with my little bowl to the tea shop and I begged them for milk. I brought it back. I fed her the milk, and she was so malnourished that her eyes were literally at the back of her head. But I nursed her back to health, and today she's married in Australia and has just given birth to her own little baby girl, Samantha. But I refused from a very young girl. I'm not sure what it was with me, but I refused to accept anything that had happened to me. I just knew. And we never had the internet. We didn't even have a television. We had no access to the outside world whatsoever. We then went to a boarding school, but we didn't know what existed. But I had this inner belief that this is temporary. We are going to get out of here, and I am going to get my siblings out of here. Whereas my parents had accepted their fate. So for them, it was, this is where we are, this is where we will remain, and we just have to make the best of what we have. But that's why I say, if you accept what you have, there's a saying, if you continue to do what you're doing, you will continue to get what you're getting. But I refused to accept. And so I finished school, went to Delhi, moved from Calcutta to Delhi, got a job there, was interviewed with more than 250 girls, given a paper and a pen at the door and told, take a seat. But I wanted the job so badly that, we came down from 100 to 75 to 50 to 3, and I was selected. And that's because I truly believe that I have to get this job. I have little ones to bring up. I have things to do, and we need to leave this country. We need to go. And I think it's that belief that has taken me to where I am today.
I think it's extraordinary the way you have completely turned your life around, and more than just once. I mean, it was more than just that move from the slums to having your first professional jobs. It was after you came to the UK as well, dealt with a lot of health issues in your family, and still kept turning your life around. It's truly, truly remarkable.
It is, Holly. My second book that I'm writing is the title is The Irrepressible Mind, and I think I've given it that title because I need people to understand that when you can develop this mental resilience of a different kind, anything is possible. The mind is, so great. And if only we can understand that it can actually do anything and give us anything we want, if only we believe that we can make things happen. And honestly, I'm a living example. I have fought through the deaths of siblings, and I have fought through, my parents and my mom dying of cancer. I have brought up the little ones all by myself. I have had such major setbacks. Of course, I don't have the time on the show to tell you, but you could read it from my book. And I've always had that one thought in mind, that my overall goal and objective is to help other people. And I grew up with the poorest of the poor, and the poorest of the poor helped us to save our lives, The vegetable woman by the corner, we used to collect all the bad potatoes and tomatoes from her every day and cook it. The meat man who used to give us dried bones and we used to make soup out of it. The chemist by the corner who gave us medicines that were, used by a date, but I still brought it home and gave it to my sister. And all these people helped us, but I grew up with the poorest of the poor, and that made me actually think of, how can I help these people? How can I give back? So no matter what I did and no matter where I went, I didn't ever lose sight of the main goal at mind. And I think today what I'm doing is actually living my dream. Everything I've wanted as a little girl has come true because I just wanted to be able to help hundreds of people, and that's what I'm doing today.
That's lovely. So tell us a little bit about your business and how your business allows you to fund all of your charitable initiatives.
Well, I have so many businesses. I'm a public speaker, so that's the main core business because I love what I do basically as a speaker, and I love talking to people on, on so many different subjects, especially on the irrepressible mind and things like that. But I also do trainings, leadership trainings, corporate trainings, things like that. I also run a TTC, a Teachers Training Center in India for teachers. I also have an English Language Academy, and obviously I've just launched the National Speaking Academy in India as well, which is to actually give young people the ability to speak. And I think public speaking, with public speaking, you get the power to change the world. You don't have to be superbly educated in order to do that, and in order to speak your mind. You need the skills, and that's what I'm giving them. But I do think that it is highly inspiring, highly inspirational, and it can give them the confidence that they need. They just need that olive branch to hold on to, Holly. And if you give somebody that, they find their way on their own.
And I think there's so much power in someone sharing their story, not only for them and for their own healing and growth, but also for everyone who listens to them.
Absolutely. And, some people in India have some stories to tell. They're shocking. And some of the little girls that we train, and we tell them, okay, you have 3 minutes to speak. And some of the things that they come out with are remarkable. So I want to give them that ability to speak and to come forward and to do. You never know where that would lead them. They say adversity heals and adversity gives you the courage. But for somebody like me, Holly, adversity is the only opportunity we got in a country like India. There was no other opportunity. So you have to really take what you got and work with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do for them. I mean, when it comes to the young ones. But of course, we have 5 study centers now with the little ones as well. And we now run 3 food banks for the very old, the aged, and the disabled. The young ones, of course, we teach public speaking, training skills, and we also find them employment in different 5-star hotels, etc. And of course, we deal with the disabled and women in need separately.
Excellent. So it looks like you're taking care of pretty much all of the different areas of need in the population, from young to old.
Yes, we have 5 teams. 43 people in total work 24/7 to reach out to these different people. And they do such a brilliant job. It's truly amazing to see the passion behind these hearts and minds, that they just want nothing else except to change lives and to help and to give back. So, like I said, it's like living a dream.
That's wonderful. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how we can be extraordinary in our business. What are your top tips on how a woman entrepreneur who may have an established business but may be struggling to grow it, how can she be extraordinary and make a difference with her business?
That's a great question, Holly. I think the first point that comes to mind is focus. There's a beautiful saying that if you want many things all at the same time, it adds confusion. But when you only focus upon the specifics in any given moment, you bring clarity and power to your creation. And I think it's being very, very disciplined and very focused on what you want and what you're going to do to get it. Because I think very many of the women I mentor, they want to help people in need, but to be honest, their businesses haven't taken off at all. So they have the hearts and they're beautiful souls, but you first have to help yourself before you can help someone else. And then they want to also start clothes, and they want to start perfumes, and they want to be a speaker, and you can't do that and expect to succeed.
You've got to start with one thing, and then
and you have got to be very focused, because competition is very high out there. And you have got to get the best guidance and the best mentoring, and you've got to understand quality and quantity. So many people go to, I find, any conference, anything that they get their hands on, and they'll be all over the place. But they're getting quantity. If you can find yourself one person who can give you that quality guidance and that quality mentoring and help, you are actually made. but you've got to understand the difference that a rolling stone gathers no moss.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where discipline comes in. That's that's what I would tell women secondly. And I think thirdly would be to develop this mental resilience, because finances can get you down, or the lack of finances really can really get you down when you have no money. And at the end of the day, whatever you do, you need money. To set up a great website, you need money. To, get a great video going, you need money. Or whatever it is, you need money. And that can get you down. But I think, there's this line from this poem. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it says, stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem the worst that you mustn't quit. And you mustn't quit. You have to develop that resilience of mind that once you have gone through the structure or the questions of, yes, is business for me? And I do a course actually called A Dose of Reality for new businesses. And once I take them through that course of, is business the right thing for you? But once you've made that selection, you have to develop that resilience of mind that no matter what comes at me, I'm not going to stop until I make it. Because if you've read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and he interviewed 500 millionaires, most of them who actually made it said that we were on the brink of giving up, but we didn't, and that's how we made it.
Yeah. So how do you recommend that people develop that mental resilience? Because I think it can be really, really challenging if you're not used to growing up in adversity, and then suddenly you go out into business and you're met with all of these new challenges that just completely take you outside of your comfort zone, and as you said, can really drag you down. How can you develop that mental resilience?
I think one real good tip over there is to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Because, for example, if I talk to a nurse and she's suddenly trying to be a speaker, I would say when you get into the market, you're going to be asked what experience you have as a speaker or a trainer. How long have you been doing it? Show me testimonials. Show me written recommendations. And if you don't have all of that, it's going to take you that much longer to climb the ladder. But if you were a nurse and you can, there's a whole exercise that we do at the course about understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. So if you're a nurse and you can take that medical background and use that to say, I'm a speaker, but I speak on this. Or I am a trainer, but I actually go into corporates and I train people on health, etc., etc. Then you can actually put down without batting an eyelid that I have 20 or 30 years of experience, rather than I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm whatever, but I only have 6 months of experience because I've only just started. You see what I mean? But if you use your past experience to come and help you, it makes the battle and the journey that much easier. That's what I always recommend people to do. But you'll find most of them saying, I want to be a speaker, but I'd like to really speak on motivation or inspiration or whatever. That's okay, but everyone out there has a sad story to tell. What is the difference that makes the difference? But if you can use your strengths to help you, that can get you very far. And I think the second point is definitely persistence. So for example, if you're an author, like I was, and you're starting out, and many publishers will say, probably say no to your book, then you have got to fight your way through. I went for self-publishing the first time, and I was told, no, we can't get your book into W.H. Smith. My gosh, W.H. Smith only take the very, very top books. So I thought, well, okay, but I approached W.H. Smith myself. They sent me such a huge pile of paper forms to fill in. I filled it all in. I sent it back. I did everything myself, and W.H. Smith wrote back to me saying, we'll have your book. Please send it. So there you go, you were in. And even when joining big organizations like the Professional Speaking Academy or the Special Speaking Association, etc., you'll find that they'll tell you, you need to get 2 people to recommend you, 2 top speakers who have listened to you. And you're thinking, how do I get that? I don't even know anyone in that, in that association. But then again, you have to persist and you have to say, no, you've got to take me. Here's my videos. Here's what I can do. You've got to listen to me. I'm going to invite you to my next speech. And very soon they'll write back to you and say, I have an email from the head of the PSA saying, Jillian, your persistence has paid off. Congratulations, you're now a member. So that's it. It's called persistence. And then when you're selling your books, you'll find that many, especially if you go down the self-publishing route, you'll find your publisher will most often take most of the money and tell you that your books are just not selling. So then it's up to you to get up and go out there and sell your books yourself. Get into schools, get into universities, get into corporates, get into anyone who will have you, because chances are they'll say to you, I can't pay you, but will you come? You say, I'll come, but I'll need to sell a few books.
Yeah.
And then, I sold, up to today, I've sold more than 200,000 books just on my own. Mainly on my own. Universities have ordered it, schools have ordered it by the hundreds. But you have got to make that effort. It's a DIY game. Yeah.
I think that's very, very important, because I think so many people, particularly with publishing, as you've mentioned, I think so many people expect that, they'll get the fancy publisher and the publisher will take care of everything. But even the big name publishers don't market your book as much as you'd think they would.
No, they don't, Holly. They put out 20 or 50 books a month. And you're just a little fish in a very big pond. You've got to understand that. You feel very important because it's your book, but then everybody else is feeling important. It is up to you to get it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that it can be really challenging for women who are just starting out in business. They want to make a difference. They want to give back, but they've got to help themselves first and get their business to a point where they can more easily make a difference by helping people out. How would you recommend that new or starter entrepreneurs start to contribute a little bit so that they can feel good about making a difference without hurting themselves in the process?
Holly, I just recently put out on social media that one of my main objectives for 2016 was to actually try and convince as many corporates as possible to add a social arm to their businesses. Because I think it's very important from so many angles to try and give back. A, it makes you feel better. Yeah. B, people look at you in a better light. And C, you're helping the people who you're reaching out to. And trust me, it sometimes does not take any money at all.
Okay.
Nothing. You can just go out and volunteer. You can just go out and run a race. You can just go out and be part of a marathon. You can be part of sports relief coming up. You can do so much, and people then get the impression of you that you are a person who helps. I remember a long, long time ago, McDonald's asked me to do a speech for them to their it was a leadership conference, and they were hooing and hawing about paying. And I said, look here, you don't need to pay me. What I want is you feed X amount of burgers to the kids in India from any of your outlets. And they agreed.
Wow.
I spoke here, they gave the burgers there. Excellent. I was absolutely happy about it. I didn't mind. But that publicity went very far.
For you and for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of little things that you can do that does not cost you a lot of money, but it can get you a whole load of goodwill.
I think that is an excellent idea, because I think a lot of people really struggle because they want to give back, but they think, I'm just not turning enough of a profit in my business. What can I do? But you've always got your time and your skills, and, those can be put to, work too, in giving back and making a difference.
Yeah, and most places where you go, Holly, you'll see that when you talk to the people of the home or the organization or wherever you go and you say, you know what, I'm here to give back, but do you mind if I put a picture or two out on my website? I'd love to, put this out. And maybe if something comes back, I'll give you the funds or the donation. And they're more than happy to say, of course, go ahead, do it. Thank you for coming. So there's a lot you can do. There are just a million things you can do if you want to.
Excellent. So, Jillian, do you have any women entrepreneurs who inspire you, or is there anyone maybe in the philanthropy field that inspires you?
Well, I think the first person who comes to mind, is Mother Teresa, who actually, hails from the city I hail from, Calcutta. And obviously, I've met her and I've got help from her personally. And I think she's the greatest woman I know who's changed lives by the millions. And of course, I know very many women who are, well, I wouldn't say top entrepreneurs, but they are working very hard to be good entrepreneurs. But at the top, if I look at top women entrepreneurs, there are quite a few of them I met when I was receiving the True Legend Award last year, when I received the True Legend Award in India, and when I received the first runner-up Asian Woman of the Year award, because that was for women entrepreneurs as well. And there are quite a few of them. You just have to, Google Women of the Future or Asian Woman of the Year. And these are women who have actually come from nothing, but created empires of their own. And many of them have actually come from, quite affluent backgrounds, Holly. They have come from a lot of money and wealth, but they have actually refused to accept that and wanted to go solo on their own and do things. So I think it's incredible. And the lady who heads all of this is a lady called Pinky Lalani. She is highly respected and she promotes all of these women. And I have a great amount of respect for her as well.
Excellent. So, Jillian, where can other women go online and learn more about you and what you do? What's the best place to start?
Google. Well, I have, my gosh, more than 150,000 mentions on Google because of all the media and the press and all of that. But definitely Google to start with, and otherwise just by my name, Jillianhaslam.com. If they want to know anything about the book, and the first book in Indian.English that I've written, which is now being turned into a Hollywood production.
And when is that coming out?
The movie, you mean?
Yes.
We are in the process, Holly. We've been very fortunate, actually. We've had a Hollywood producer contact me and come on board, Cyrus Yavna. And he's a 3-time Golden Globe Award winner, Academy Award winner. We've also now got Jack Shoulder, who is another Academy Award winner, come on board as the director. And we are working on arranging funding, which is between the region of 20 to 30 million pounds to make the movie in 3 different countries. So we are working on that. We have got an award-winning script. We've got everything going, and I never even expected it to get this far.
Wow.
But yeah, they can go into www.indianenglishthebook.com, and you can even find that through jillianhaslam.com. But you can listen to interviews with the producer, the director. You can look at trailers. You can read about the book. Everything's there. And all of the charity work that I do is on Remedia Trust, remediatrust.org, O-R-G. And that's all of the charity work I do in India. And of course, there's plenty of other sites, but I won't bore you with all that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think your story is absolutely inspirational, and I highly recommend that everyone who's listening today gets your book, because it's very, very inspiring, and it's truly eye-opening.
Thank you, Holly. But I just want to say that the book has been taken off the market.
Oh.
Yes, but they can get it from the site, from Indian.English.thebook.com. It's been taken off the market because they're preparing it to release it just before the movie.
So
excellent. It's been done with a purpose. Yeah.
All right. And your next book, The Irrepressible Mind, when is that coming out?
Probably in July.
Oh,
The Irrepressible Mind, and we are doing another one, The Irrepressible Mind for students. And I'm also actually writing one, like I said, it's a dose of reality for new business entrepreneurs.
I like that.
I'm also doing that because that's what I think the most questions that come to me are from new entrepreneurs. So I thought it was very handy to put my experience down.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Not at all, Holly. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/140 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.